Entrando em contato com o atendimento ao cliente... Para muitas pessoas é um jeito fácil de arruinar um bom dia. Mas na Zendesk, nós deixamos a experiência do cliente melhor. Melhor para sua avó, melhor para o seu vendedor preferido de flores, melhor para o cara do apartamento 3A, melhor para você, melhor para todos. Porque enquanto alguns dizem que o cliente sempre tem razão, nós dizemos que o cliente é sempre humano. E, como seres humanos, queremos fazer algo melhor para todos nós. Zendesk, experiência do cliente com IA desenvolvida para humanos.
Quer desenvolver os talentos da sua equipe e potencializar os resultados da sua empresa? Conte com a expertise do atendimento corporativo do Senac São Paulo, que já capacitou mais de 1 milhão de pessoas e profissionais de instituições públicas, privadas e terceiro setor. Construa uma equipe altamente motivada e capacitada e destaque-se no mercado. Entre em contato, acesse sp.senac.br/corporativo e saiba mais. Quer saber? Senac.
The Agile Brand.
Welcome to Season 6 of the Agile Brand, where we discuss marketing technology and customer experience trends, insights, and ideas with enterprise and technology platform leaders. We focus on the people, processes, data, and platforms that make brands successful, scalable, customer-focused, and sustainable. This is what makes an Agile brand. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advising Fortune 1000 brands on MarTech, marketing operations, and CX, best-selling author and speaker. The Agile Brand podcast is brought to you by TechSystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that my latest book, Priority is Action: 7 Principles for Better Strategies, Decisions, and Outcomes, is now available. In it, I give ideas and insights for leaders and teams that need to make meaningful progress on their priorities. After all, our priorities are what we do, not what we say we'd like to do. You can find Priority is Action on Amazon or learn more on my website, gregkihlstrom.com. Now let's get on to the show. We're here at PegaWorld Inspire at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we've been seeing some amazing things, including how AI can transform the enterprise and been hands-on at the Innovation Hub. Church Mutual recently partnered with P3Fusion and Pega to build a unified CRM and underwriting solution that transformed their enterprise operations with a streamlined approach that significantly reduced implementation time and cost. Today we're going to talk about this and see what it takes to successfully deliver incremental value, reusability, and automation in the enterprise. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Rick Meehean, Director of Workflow Management at Church Mutual Insurance Company. Rick, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about this with you. Why don't we get started with you giving a little background on yourself and your role at Church Mutual?
Yeah, so I spent 10 years in underwriting at Church Mutual. And then when we decided to take on the Pega implementation, they asked that I come over and lead the effort from the business side. So working with the business, helping them develop requirements, coming along, understanding the system, and helping people through that.
Great. Okay, so yeah, came to the table with the almost hands-on knowledge, right?
Yeah, the business knowledge, not the technical knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. So what were some of the challenges that you were trying to solve with this initiative?
Yeah, so Church Mutual has been around a long time, ensuring religious institutions, nonprofits. When you've been around a while, you get these legacy systems that have been around, right? And after a while, it's no longer nimble. It's slow to make changes. And with our customers now, right, expecting things quicker, we needed to move forward, be able to have the products that we needed, implement things quickly, to be able to be responsive to our customers.
Yeah. So what was the decision process like to partner with Pega and P3Fusion? You know, what did each kind of bring to the table for Church Mutual?
Yeah, so that was actually before I was on the project. There was other people at the company who handled that. I came on after those decisions were made, and they came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, we've decided to go down this route. Can you come in here? But I do know that one of the big things for us was we want a platform that isn't just for today. We want a platform that's for the future. The company's growing. We need to have a platform that's going to grow with us, and that 5 years down the road, we don't find ourselves limited again. And so that was definitely a big thought in picking Pega is this is the platform, not just for today, but for the future of this company.
Yeah, because it's that technical debt, right? I mean, I'm sure that's what you were living with and what Church Mutual was living with for years, it sounds like, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, talk us through the process a little bit from, when you were involved, what were some of the key moments within the implementation?
Yeah, so we really kind of did 1 a year implementation. Where we had found ourselves, though, is we had decided to put a new policy administration system in place. And that left us with a hard date of we had to have renewal workflow in place 1 year from that date. So when we started, we knew that, and that's where we were heading. And so that was November of 2020 that we put that solution in place. And it allowed us to have first time we had an automated workflow where people didn't have to trigger things or look at reports to trigger items. And that, to me, was a huge step. And then every year after that, we did an implementation. So the next year we did a sales automation implementation. Then we came back and did work comp and auto policy renewals. And finally, customer service module. So each one of those being a big milestone. So
that first one, could you talk a little bit about, what was it? What was the manual, like how many steps and, what did that look like pre-implementation?
Yeah. So we had a point where a person would get a report and then they had to go and manually trigger a policy. And then they would do some setup on it. And they would have to decide, does it go to a person or where do we send it? And they would have to manually send it there. There was many steps in that process and many different roles. And so we really looked at it to say, are there any of these steps that we can automate and where can we make the process much smoother?
I mean, it sounds like, there's a lot of room for, if not things going to the wrong place, at least delays and questions and all those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, definitely. And people had to know the rules, right? You had to go look at your processes and procedures.
Você que está ouvindo esse podcast vive no trânsito entre uma reunião e outra, só um carro poderá te dar a segurança que precisa. O Volkswagen Taos. O SUVW com nota máxima em segurança e com sensor de ponto cego, assistente de faixa e muitos outros poderes. Taos, carro com superpoderes.
I'm excited to announce an exclusive offer that will enhance your listening experience of the Agile Brand with Greg Kilstrom podcast. You can now listen to my show, The Agile Brand, completely ad-free on your favorite listening apps like Spotify and Apple for just $4.99 a month, giving you access to all the great conversations with top thought leaders in marketing technology, CX, and more without the ads. To learn more and sign up, follow the link in the show notes to listen to The Agile Brand completely ad-free. Check it out now. So the implementation with Pega involves sales automation, customer decision hub, customer service, and some other technologies. Looking back, you mentioned about the forward thinking and lowering technical debt and all that kind of stuff, but why do you think that Pega was the right choice for this? And were there any unexpected benefits that weren't anticipated?
So one of the unexpected benefits that I see is this really started us thinking about things differently, right? We had to start to think about our processes differently. All of a sudden, there's all these new possibilities, and we have to start to think about where do we apply these things to add benefit, right? There's so much out there. And just as business areas together, we all get together now and we think about things and talk about things way differently than we did when we first kicked this off. And that to me was an unexpected benefit. We thought, hey, we're going to put this technology in place and we're going to run our business. We didn't think it's going to change our whole mindset.
Yeah. It also sounds like sometimes there's concern about automation kind of taking the human component out of it. Just from what you just said, at least, it sounds like you're actually working more collaboratively or maybe more constructively collaboratively as a team. Would that be safe to say?
Yes. Yeah. We've definitely taken people from every department. And now we have these people get together and talk about what's going on in the process together. Because this isn't siloed. What one area does, what underwriting does, impacts sales. What sales does impacts customer service. What customer service does impacts underwriting. And we really have people coming together now to talk about how they impact each other and what the best process is.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty powerful, because I think that's where a lot of transformation stalls is. The silos kind of, everyone talks about breaking down silos, but when it actually comes to it, it's difficult to do. So that's great to hear that's not the case. So in this implementation, so we've got multiple parties. We've got P3Fusion, we've got Pega, we've got the Church Mutual team. What was the internal team doing alongside those other partners?
Yeah, so we had the business team who was coming up with requirements and thinking about how they wanted to re-engineer these processes. We had these processes for 25 years. So now we have to think about, okay, what can we do now? So we have the business areas getting together and talking about those types of items. P3 is building items out in test for us to look at and get demos of and think about, how does this meet our needs? We also had internal IT, who is finding data for us and pulling things in and getting it to the P3 team when they need it, so that we make sure that all of this comes together, and that's Pega connects to other systems that are very important.
Yeah. So let's talk about how we measure success and as well as looking forward a bit in achieving sustainable results. So how do you measure success? What are KPIs for something like this?
Yeah. So, one thing that we're looking at is adoption. So, hey, are people using the system, right? Because we have to have them in there using it in order for it to run and to get the benefit out of it. So we look at that. We focus on, how many transactions are we having people touch? You still need people to touch stuff, right? Are they touching the right things? What percentage of items aren't being touched by people? Is it the right amount? Are people touching the right things? And then do we have all the workflows in there that we wanted, right? So going into this, we said, here's the types of flows that we want to put in here. The ones that are around policy issuance. And yes, we have all of those in there, and all of the impacted areas are in there, and everybody's using it.
Yeah. How have internal teams' roles changed, or have they changed, with this transformation?
Yeah, the internal team roles have definitely changed, right? So we had people who were setting up policies before. They don't need to do that role. There's plenty of other things that we need them to do, right? We need to focus on changes to policies. We need to focus on other items where you need a person to jump in and bring their expertise. So the nice thing is it's some of the stuff that they don't have to touch now has freed them up to spend the time on that stuff. So that stuff isn't running behind where you have all this other work piling in there. Yeah. And so that has been amazing and really allowed teams to focus on the work that they need to accomplish.
And I mean, that sounds like the more valuable stuff for a human to do, right? It's like, let people do what people do best and machines do what machines do best, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So what about taking things forward? So, you mentioned that you're on a yearly kind of cycle here. How does Church Mutual look at not only future roadmap, but also just sustainable results? So continuing to improve, whether it's efficiency or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, we have two things in place. So we have a really robust enhancement process in place. When we launched this, it was never the idea to say, we're going to launch this, the project closes, and it's done. We know that this tool needs to be constantly tweaked and maintained, right? If you want to get the most out of it, you find the next problem and you go ahead and do something about it. So we have an enhancement process where the business comes forward with items and we all get together, one person from each business area, and we prioritize items together. And so we have a team that specifically works on what I'd call small to medium enhancements, right? This is nice, but it would be a little bit more efficient for me if you did this, right? Or, hey, now I need to do this step in this workflow. We just need to add this one step. And then we also have separate people that we work with for bigger type items. And so now we're laying out, okay, we have this great foundation. What are all the other things that we want to do? And so we do have additional plans. And some of the things that we're focusing on are there ancillary processes or workflows to what we have in there that we can start putting these in here, bringing additional people in, and continue to get more value there. And then the other thing is that there's still items that when people get it, they have to go somewhere else to get information. They have to go somewhere else to find something to make a decision. And what we want to start to focus on is bringing those items to the person in the system so that when they open it in the system, they have just about everything that they need, right? Except for one-off situations.
Yeah. So how do you look at prioritizing I mean, that's a lot, right? So you can't do everything at once, of course, but how do you look at, like, what are some of the metrics or data points or whatever that you use to prioritize what gets done when?
Yeah. So we look at number of transactions that are going to be impacted. Is there a compliance related item? So if a state puts some sort of new regulation in place that we have to comply with, that's something we have to jump on very quickly, right? What's the complexity of the item that we're going to put in there? So it could be a smaller volume, but the complexity is high. And so if we can help automate that, it's really going to improve what happens throughout the process. Yeah.
Oh, this is great. And, it really is, it's great to hear that the team is working differently and better and more collaborative. A lot of times you it's more of the same, or it's it's same dysfunction, different platform or something like that. So, I mean, it sounds like there's actually better ways of working. So, I mean, would you characterize it that way?
Yeah, I would definitely say that there's definitely better ways of working. Things have evolved over the years, and we got to look at those processes. And it's nice at Church Mutual, we've had really good executive support to look at doing things differently and what's the best way to do things to come up with the best outcome.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Rick, thanks so much for joining today. One last question before we wrap up. So we're here at PegaWorld. What's been a highlight for you so far?
Man, there's so much stuff here, right?
Yeah.
To me, the generative AI capabilities like the buddies, I can already start to think about use cases that we have back at the office where we're going to be able to really help our customers so much quicker.
That's great. Well, again, I'd like to thank Rick Meehean, Director of Workflow Management at Church Mutual Insurance Company, for joining the show. You can learn more about Rick and Church Mutual by following the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.gregkihlstrom.com. That's GregKihlstrom.com. While you're there, check out my series of best-selling Agile Brand guides covering a wide variety of marketing technology topics, or you can search for Greg Kihlstrom on Amazon. The Agile Brand is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Until next time, stay agile.
The Agile Brand.
If you're tired of hearing the same old judgmental, shaming financial advice about buying too many lattes from old white men who conveniently ignore issues like systemic oppression, it's time to join the Financial Feminist podcast. Hosted by Tori Dunlap, a globally recognized money educator, Financial Feminist is the #1 money podcast for women. It goes beyond just talking about money. It explores how money uniquely affects women. Featuring fascinating guests like Ramit Sethi, Amy Porterfield, Maya Vander, Hannah Berner, Justin Baldoni, Eve Rodsky, and experts across finance and feminism, the podcast dives into topics such as the investing gap, sex work, diet culture, MLMs, the prison industrial complex, the psychology of money, and much more. Additionally, listeners can benefit from how-to episodes like how to start investing or how to finally become debt-free. Join in smashing the patriarchy and getting rich one episode at a time. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by the Yap Media Podcast Network. I'm Hala Taha, CEO of the award-winning digital media empire, Yap Media, and host of Yap Young and Profiting Podcast, a #1 entrepreneurship and self-improvement podcast where you can listen, learn, and profit. On Young and Profiting Podcast, I interview the brightest minds in the world, and I turn their wisdom into actionable advice that you can use in your daily life. Each week, we dive into a new topic like the art of side hustles, how to level up your influence and persuasion, and goal setting. I interview A-list guests on Young and Profiting. I've got the best guests, like the world's #1 negotiation expert, Chris Voss, Shark Damon John, serial entrepreneurs Alex and Layla Hermosi, and even movie stars like Matthew McConaughey. There's absolutely no fluff on my podcast, and that's on purpose. Every episode is jam-packed with advice that's going to push your life forward. I do my research, I get straight to the point, and I take things really seriously, which is why I'm known as the podcast princess and how I became one of the top podcasters in the world in less than 5 years. Young and Profiting Podcast is for all ages. Don't let the name fool you. It's an advanced show. As long as you want to learn and level up, you will be forever young. So join Podcast Royalty and subscribe to Young and Profiting Podcast, or YAP, like it's often called by my YAP fam, on Apple, Spotify, CastBox, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.